Hello dear viewer, you are most welcome to this lesson. Today we are going to be continuing with our work, and we are having our discussion picked from page 92. That is of our workbooks, primary 7 class. Page 92 gives us the heading as the human rights. We have the Human Rights Charter declared by the UN, and today we are going to be looking at what we call human rights. This is not something which is going to be new to our ears, because in primary 5 we talk about the human rights. In primary 3, primary 4 we talk about the children's rights. Those are the rights of children. And you say children have a right to food, that is to eat. They have a right to education. Children have a right to parental care and the other rights that we talked about in primary 3, primary 4. In P5, we start talking about human rights, which means we are getting out of the children's bracket or out of that bracket of children, and we look at the human beings in general. So in our definition, we are going to say human rights are the freedoms that human beings are entitled to enjoy. That is how simple we are going to be defining this term human rights. The fundamental freedoms that, or we shall simply say the freedoms that human beings are entitled to enjoy, or the freedoms that people are entitled to have because of being human beings. That is what we have. Here we are going to have the classifications of human rights, whereby on that page we are given, we have the fundamental human rights, then we shall have the civil rights, we shall also have the cultural rights. Now, let us look at the first one. We have what we call the fundamental human rights. Classifications of human rights. So we are going to talk about our human rights classified in two. One, we are going to talk about the fundamental human rights. Then two, we shall have the civil human rights, and then we shall also be having the cultural human rights, and then we shall have also the economic rights. Economic human rights. Now we are going to look at the examples of this. The first one, the fundamental rights, we are saying these are the rights that include a right to life, That is fundamental. People have a right to live. Remember, even in the children's rights, we say the right to life. It's also there. Then we have a right to acquire your own property. That is a right to ownership of property. We have a right to education, a right to freedom of religion. We shall have a right to freedom of movement, a right to belonging, that is to one's nationality. For example, when we look at us in Uganda, you'll find we are Ugandans, that is our nationality. And then we have a right to take part in one's government policy decisions. We have a right to choice of employment and a right to work. One has a right to decide what kind of work he or she wants to do. Then the civil rights, we are saying these are rights which allow people to actively participate in their own government or governance. For example, this is when people have participation in elections, such activities that promote democracy. That is where we have a right to, and that is under civil rights, a right to participate in activities that promote nationalism or that promote democracy of a country. And then we have the cultural rights. The cultural rights, these include a right to cultural practices. For example, you'll find that we have cultural practices like circumcision. We have these funeral rites that people always conduct. So you'll find that people have that freedom to carry out such cultural activities without being interfered with. Though sometimes you will find that to some of these cultural activities, they again violate other rights. And we shall be looking at that as we continue. And then the economic rights. This is a right. This one is a right. We are saying these are the special groups of people, such as children, women, and then we have people with disabilities. So it simply means that this is a right that people have because of who they are. For example, we talked of children, and we say the children's rights are there. Then we have people who are disabled, people who are lame, people who are deaf, people who are blind, people who are dumb. All those are what we call disabilities. So those also have the rights, much as they are disabled, but they also have the rights like that. We have people with special rights on our page 93. We have children, and of course this will take us to that we call the children's rights. And we say that since we talked about this in primary 3, 4, and even P5, we shall just be going through this. And you'll find that the children's rights those are the freedoms that children are entitled to enjoy. Here we will say these are the freedoms that human beings are entitled to enjoy. Either side we shall just substitute human beings and we put there children. Meaning, in that case, we shall be looking at that bracket of children in particular. We have a right to education, as I had already said, a right to protection. That is, that's why we have a right to parental love, a right to be protected by their parents and to be loved by the parents. A right to have a name is there. A right to eat. You children have that right to eat. And then you have a right to play. So all those fall under what we call the children's rights. Then we go to the women as another special group of people with the rights. Here we have a right to fully participate, like a right to have full and equal dignity, like the men. That is what we call gender equality. You will find that gender equality. Equality from the word equal, of which gender refers to the state of a person, that is the sex of a person, that can be either male or female. Female or male. So that is what we term as gender. Now, gender equality, remember we have said gender refers to the sex of a person, a male or female, and then equality comes from the word equal, which means to put people at the same pace or at the same line without discriminating others. So when we talk about gender equality, we are looking at having equal rights for both the women and the men, without or maybe discriminating the other sex. So that is what we call by gender equality. So women have the right to have that. There is what we call women's emancipation. Women emancipation. Women emancipation. That is to emancipation. Emancipation is like to give power to or to uplift the women in particular. We're looking at women emancipation, such that women will not be looked at as superior, as inferior people, but also as at the same level as the men. So when we talk about women emancipation, we are looking at uplifting the standards of women by giving them also equal opportunities like those of men. That is what we simply mean by women emancipation. And then we have also women have a right to provision of facilitation and opportunity by the state in order to promote their welfare and their potential. Like I say, we have the government of Uganda, that is through the President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, encouraging this program of women emancipation to make sure that women are also taking up the responsibilities that men can take up without being looked at as the ones who are under men. Then we have a right to equal treatment with men in political positions, in social areas, in economic activities, in doing economic activities, and so on. You will find that during those days, long ago, there were some activities that women were not supposed to do. They were in most cases you could find that they are the activities that men were on those positions that the men were supposed to be doing only, whereas the women were looked at as people who could not manage that. So for those ones, mainly they were women were for house activities. So you'll find that today you will have we have women taking up big positions in big companies, being managers and so on. So that is all about women emancipation. And then a right to affirmative action. Then we shall go to people with disabilities. What do they have? These people have a right to life. They also have a right to education. Not just someone is disabled, that person is also having that right to get educated. And then a right to health. In case a person falls sick, don't just look at someone who is maybe in layman, you're like, no, this was also wasting time treating for what? No, that person has that right to treatment. And then we have a right to access to justice. They are also to be treated fairly, fair judgment given to them. And this is to avoid discriminating, that is giving them stigma. That is what we call stigmatization. So what happens is that these people who are lame, who are disabled, they need fair treatment from us. They should be treated, they should be looked at like other normal people. I mean people who are not deformed, who are not disabled. We should not be laughing at them because of their disabilities. We should not be, maybe you discriminate, don't want men to move with them, don't want men to get closer to them. No. Remember, they say that disability is not inability, which means these people can be disabled like that, but there is something that they can do. So that is about people with disabilities. They should be given fair treatment, that is justice, in the communities where they stay, such that they are not embarrassed, they don't feel like as if they are just in a different planet. They are also humans like us. Then we have a right to employment, which means these people are also to be given jobs, as long as one is like qualifying for that job. As long as the person has the qualifications for that job, the person can be given that job without looking at the disability of this person. And then they also have a right to respect and dignity, meaning they should be respected just like any other people. That's why I say that we should be treating them fairly, regardless of which disability they have. We have child abuse, which is asked in a question form. Remember, even this child abuse is primary 3, primary 4. We talked about this. This simply refers to the abuse of the children's rights. That is the violation of children's rights. And how are these rights abused? We have the forms of forms of child abuse. We have neglect abuse. We have sexual abuse. We have emotional abuse, and we have physical abuse also. So those are the forms of child abuse. Then we have examples of child abuse. Remember, the forms of child abuse are different from the examples. Child abuse, we are saying it simply refers to the denial of children's rights. Children's rights. And we have talked about the forms of child abuse. Forms of child abuse. Number one, we have talked about sexual abuse. We can add this information to that page of ours. We have it on page 93. Sexual abuse. We shall have emotional abuse. That can go with a mental. Abuse. Then we shall have a physical abuse. Physical abuse. And then finally we shall have neglect abuse. So these are the forms. Then for that we shall move to examples that we can now classify, or that we can categorize in this format. For example, we have child labor. Child labor, meaning giving a child to carry or to do a lot of work which is not worthy at the age of that child. For example, giving a child of 5 years to carry a 20-liter jerrycan of water. So you find that one is torturing a child, that is physically. Then we have child sacrifice. Child sacrifice. We shall have child kidnap. All the things I said, we learned them in our primary 3. We shall have a rape. We shall have defilement. Defilement. When a child is defiled or raped, you will find the child will be abused, or a child's rights will be abused sexually. And then we have also others like battering, child battering. We shall have child burning. This can go physical under physical abuse. And then we have child neglect, like denial of course this now under neglect abuse, denial of food to a child, denial of clothes, denial of education. All those, when a child has been denied something, then that child, that person will have performed what we call neglect abuse. So that is about child abuse. The other thing that we shall be looking at is that we have the people who practice child abuse. Then maybe let us talk about this. People who practice child abuse. The people who practice child abuse, among others, we shall have the ritualists. Ritualists. The ritualists, these are people like the ones who can kidnap a child, and they take a child like for sacrifice. So we find that person wants that child to be offered as a sacrifice, such that the person gets wealth, person gets riches. So that is a person we call a ritualist. Spelling is clear. Then we have the rapists. We shall have some parents, biological parents. Biological parents can also, and then we have step parents. Step parents. And then we also have fellow children violating the rights of others, of their colleagues. Fellow children can also bring or can also perform child abuse, which will be bad. So, having looked at the people who practice child abuse, we also have the people that we should report our cases in case our rights have been abused. Where are we going to report our cases of child abuse? When we were in primary 3, we say we have the local council, one committee, that is the vice chairperson. We can report our rights to the vice chairperson, that is LC1 committee. We can report child abuse cases to our teachers. We can report to our parents in case someone violates our rights. We can report to the police or any other cultural leader. If you have a cultural leader, we can also report these cases to those cultural leaders, and our problems will be helped or addressed. So that is about children's rights. So I want us to go to page 94, and page 94 is giving us the ways women's rights have been abused. Of course, we're looking at women's rights. One, we have what we call through female genital mutilation, that is FGM. That simply means that circumcising the females. And then we have denial of inheritance of property, like when you find that in Africa, in most cases, when the husband dies, the relatives will not allow the woman, the wife, to take the ownership of the property. Instead, they will get another heir from the maybe the brothers of the late or any other person, but not the woman. Of which, according to the actual sense, it should have been the woman to take care of her husband's property, that is to inherit. And then we also have women's rights being violated through what we call violence. That is domestic violence. You find this is when sometimes the husbands end up beating their wives and so on. That is under domestic violence. Protection of the human rights. The UN promotes human rights through the Declaration of Human Rights adopted in 1948. The UN High Commissioner of Human Rights and Center of Human Rights is based in Geneva. And then we have a sentence saying that the UN Commission of Human Rights investigates specific human rights abuse, specific human rights abuses. It investigates, and then it now comes to intervene. That is looking for the measure of helping people get out of that kind of suffering. We have which agency of the United Nations promote the rights of workers? That is the International Labour Organization. We have got some questions there that help us to check ourselves on how we have got the lesson. So we have also what we call gender balance. That is on page 95 down there. Gender balance, we are saying this is like gender. We understood gender means the sex of a person, either female or male. So gender balance, we are looking at balancing both. that is not discriminating the other. So I said people are given equal opportunities. That is what we term as gender balance. And I say this happened through what we call women emancipation, uplifting the standards of women and giving them also, raising them to be on the same line with men. That is gender balance now. So women emancipation has brought about what we call gender balance, which means giving equal opportunity to people regardless of their gender. So we are going to look at another subtopic that is about the Commonwealth of Nations on page 96.